How you doing? Sharon Schenker here. So today I'm going to be talking about one of the Mishnahs, one of the teachings in Ethics of Our Fathers, and I chose one from Ben Zoma. Ben Zoma was a sage around the time of the destruction of the Second Temple, and what he has to say is so wise, and I want to share it with you. So there are 4 ideals that he comes up with, 4 questions he asks. Who is wise? Who is strong? Who is rich? And who is honorable? And these are traits that are needed in order to become a whole person. But the first thing to note is the question. He said, who is? Ben Zoma puts this question in our mind, who is? When we ask questions, it enables us to be open. It opens up our hearts and our minds to actually receive an answer. Now, the whole of Seder night on Passover is set up with questions and answers. So it's an important question, and Ben Zoma asks, what's the ideal in being wise, strong, rich, and honorable? Enables us to presume that Ben Zoma presumes that you actually want to know the answer. So we're meant to transform ourselves in this world, and this is a good way of doing it, to actually figure out Ben Zoma's approach to living, to life. So as we go through today, I want you to try and put on some Torah lenses, and we're going to look at Jewish philosophy and what it teaches us in how to live the best life. So again, he says, who is wise, who is strong, who's rich, and who's honorable? Ben Zoma seems to define every single answer to those questions in a completely different way that society would define them. So literally the opposite. Most people would define a wise person as someone who knows a lot. But Ben Zoma says, who's wise? The one who learns from everyone. And when you think of someone being strong, you think of an image of a muscle-bound, rippling man who's really strong and can bench press lots of pounds of weight, or maybe a boss who doesn't care and just does whatever he wants, doesn't ever have to ask anyone. But Ben Zoma says, who's strong? Someone who's in control of his desires. So now think about someone who's rich. I think of Bill Gates or Elon Musk, someone who could spend whatever they want. It doesn't matter how much pounds they're spending. But so Ben Zoma explains, again, completely in contrast. Who's rich? One who is content and happy with his portion. One who's content and happy with what he has in life. So lastly, he asks, who is honored? So you might think of someone in a position of responsibility or authority, or who has an awesome reputation. But what does Ben Zoma say? He says, it's someone who honors everyone else, irrelevant of their wealth or their standing in life. He gives honor. The honored person is the person who honors others. So these are keys to greatness here, and we need to look at each of them in much more depth. So Ben Zoma wants to challenge our definitions and trying to help us aspire to greatness. So let's do it. So who is wise? One who learns from everyone. So why do we want wisdom to begin with? We're only going to want something if we recognize that we lack it. So we're only going to want something if we recognize there's a lack. So you have to have a deep awareness that there's a lack. And you realize that when you have a lack, every single person you meet is an opportunity to fulfill that lack. Because they have knowledge. It doesn't matter where they're from, their race, their color, how wealthy they are, their social standing in life. You can learn from every person, Ben Zoma teaches us. You can ask them questions on marriage, on parenting, on how they got clarity, questions on how to keep boundaries, how to be organized, how to stay calm, how to get over and understand in a different perspective their experience of life. So an exercise, I'd ask you to fill in this sentence. I would live life so much more productively if I had clarity about. What would you want clarity on? When you realize that you have questions, then you could go about trying to get the answers. So fill in the blanks. Is it, I would have clarity on God, on Torah, on love. What is love? What about relationships? About my purpose, clarity on my purpose, clarity on meaning, clarity on knowing the truth, understanding my blocks. Oh, that's a good one. So when we're aware of our lack, that's when we can pursue knowledge. That's when we have questions. We're never going to get clarity on our issues unless we realize there are areas of our life that we just have no clue about. So when you write that list of questions that you can come up with, that's when you realize that every person that you come across in your life is someone who can contribute, who has value that you can learn from. What does it mean to be good? Let me understand the difference between science and Torah. How do I be the best possible person I can be? You know, becoming wise is realizing you have a lack and filling that lack. Our sages, therefore, teach that the key to wisdom is humility. And the one thing that blocks our potential for wisdom is arrogance. I have a 7-year-old kid. Everything I say, everything I try and teach her, she's like, yeah, I know. Oh, no, I know that. I'm like, how can you know that? You're 7. She goes, oh, I know that. I know that already. And then she does it wrong and she comes to me for help. And I explain, if you say that you know everything, there's no opening to learn. So you have to be willing to recognize the areas that you don't know and to step down and have humility and realize you can learn from everyone. If you think about Passover, who's the wise person? The wise son. There are 4 sons. They ask 4 questions in the Manishtana. Usually the youngest child sings it. But the wise person, what does he say? He asks a question. He says, what are these statutes? What are these ordinances? What is everything? It sounds like he knows absolutely nothing. He's meant to be the wise person because he understands the value of acquiring knowledge, of asking a question and waiting for an answer. It's curious. He's called wise because he wants to grow in values and understanding. It's about asking questions. Again, when you ask a question, it says in Judaism, we don't bronze a child's first shoes, we bronze a child's first questions. Because when you ask a question, there's a thirst for knowledge and you're open to actually hear an answer. So Ben Zoma's lesson recognized that every person has something unique to share. And it's important what they have, and it's important to learn from others. So if everyone in this world has something that's unique and special, everyone, that's including you. So who is wise? Someone who learns from every person. So who's rich? Rich, again, I think about Bill Gates, Elon Musk, super wealthy people that don't ever worry about if they've got enough money for rent or buying a new car because they can spend and do with whatever they want with their money. So Ben Zoma says, the one who's rich, the one who is happy with what he has. He's happy, he's content with life. So often we get so bothered by other people's success, we tend to view ourselves, how? By comparison to them. So therefore, if a friend or someone else is more successful or earns more money than we tend to assume that we're doing something wrong, or we're not worthy, or we're not enough, we're not good enough, there's something wrong with me. And then we get down on ourselves. So we have to stop using other people's success as a measure of how worthy we are, how successful we are. And we learn this story with Jacob and Esau. Jacob and Esau were brothers. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. And on their meeting, Jacob thinks Esau is going to be upset. So to appease him, he buys him a gift. When Esau receives this gift, he says, oh, I have so much more. I don't need this gift. You take this gift back. I'm paraphrasing. And Jacob says, oh, that's okay, because I have everything. It's for you. And Jacob says, well, I have so much. Esau says, I have so much more than you. Jacob says, but I'm content with what I have. And here we learn that being content with what you have is where you're wealthy. That's what makes you rich, being appreciative and grateful. So we have to figure out how to appreciate what we do have, how to be happy. This is a tool for growth. Ben Zoma explains, who's rich? Being happy with what you have. We all want to be rich, right? It's a different type of wealth. So we need to figure out why we should want to be happy. how to really appreciate what we have in our lives. But we have blocks, the blocks to using gratitude properly, because spiritual happiness is being proud of achievements and still wanting to grow more. But physically, if you think about just everything you've done with your hands this morning, this afternoon, depending where you are in the time zones, just focus on 2 minutes, all the things your hands have done. Opening and closing buttons, brushing your teeth, squeezing the toothpaste, picking up a spoon, blowing your nose, wiping your brow, your face, getting dressed in the morning, hugging and touching your children, your husband, making the beds. We're so appreciative and grateful for the things that we manage to do every day. So the founder of Aish, Rabbi Noah Weinberg, there was an exercise he explained in order to have gratitude. He said you should take a piece of paper and write down for 20 minutes, half an hour, all the things that you could ever imagine being grateful for that you've had in your life. Hopefully you're filling pages. But then every day after that exercise, you add one, you add two. But then by the end of the month, you prioritize what's even more important to you, what you're most grateful for. See, it's a lesson in gratitude, and it really is eye-opening to not only see what you're grateful for, but to push yourself to find something else that you're grateful for every day, and then to prioritize them. It's a lesson in gratitude, but it takes effort. It's not easy. To be happy is a skill, and it's a choice. It's a choice to put the effort in to work on your gratitude muscle. So happiness and comfort aren't the same thing. Happiness takes effort. It's hard to be happy. It's much easier to let your environment or the people around you or your children or your husband or your friends or lack thereof to dictate your emotions. And we really want comfort more than happiness. So Ben Zoma is saying it takes effort. And the ideal is to focus on what we do have, not what we don't. We need to ask ourselves, do we want comfort or happiness? Or we'll end up not willing to put the effort in and to appreciate what we have. Years ago, I suffered with a really bad back. And I got a phone call one night that there was a woman who had multiple sclerosis. She was in a wheelchair and she wanted to go to the same event I was going to, and she asked for a ride. I'm like, sure. I had a really bad back at that time. So as I'm driving there, I'm thinking, oh, why am I doing this? I've got such a bad back. Why am I going out? And I was literally fetching and moaning in my head. When I arrived, I was told beforehand, it's okay, I knew beforehand that I would be driving their car because it was wheelchair accessible. That's fine. So the lady who had MS, her husband was also very sick. But he came out and he explained to me how to work the ramp that allowed the wheelchair to go up into the special wheelchair accessible car, how to plug the seatbelts in, and everything involved bending. And I was going, oi, my back. And I was moaning inside here, this space, again and again and again. So we get strapped into the car. And why did she want to go to the event? Because the people it was the other side of town in a home that was so kind. They had called up this lady to let them know that there's an event in my house and I don't have a ramp that leads up to my house, but I'm going to make one just for you. And they literally, that week, they made a concrete ramp leading all the way up to their back door. They'd put parking cones in their driveway just for me to pull in to get to the right place so she could go up and enter the event and have a great time. So she arrived, she had full makeup and a big smile, perfect lipstick, and she was dressed beautifully and ready to go. We get her into the car, we're driving there, and as we arrive, they usher us into the drive. And we are pushed round to the back, sent round to the back. And again, all the way in reverse, I unplug the seatbelt. She takes her electric wheelchair down the car ramp and off we go to the back door, up the newly built ramp. And as we get to the back door, the builder didn't notice the very small lip on the bottom of the door. It was about 1/2 inch high, that's all. But it was too high. It was too much of a hindrance to allow the wheelchair access to the home, even after all the efforts that they had put in. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what a night. She's smiling, she looks up at me and she says, Sharon, can you ask them if they've got an office chair with wheels? Sure. So we find an office chair, we put the 2 chairs super next to each other, and I don't know how, but miraculously she manages to ease herself into the office chair. So there I'm like full of energy and I'm ready to push the office chair into the event. And as I do, I'm pushing forward and her legs that aren't working are buckling underneath her and she's uncomfortable. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. She said, please pull me backwards. I'm thinking of my back only. I have blinkers on, all about myself. And I'm like, yeah, I'm meant to be really kind and really nice. And I'm just thinking how much my back hurts. And I'm pulling her backwards through over 100 people. And as I do, I'm having to bend down and lift up every single rug. And for some reason, this house had loads of rugs in the house. I bend down, we get all the way to the front so she could see the speaker. We do the entire thing in reverse as we're leaving. We get into the car and I looked to her. I plugged her in again. And I looked at her and I said, look, do you get home? You could just tell me, no one else is listening. But do you get home at the end of the night and just sit on the couch and moan to your husband, your sick husband? Do you moan to him? And she said, moan? But what have I got to moan about? I said, just complain. You just complain, my back's hurting. She said, what do I have to complain about? And I said, well, I felt so awkward and I sounded so awkward. She's like, no, really? And I said, well, I mean, the wheelchair and the MS and husband and how difficult it is to get through your day. She said, I have nothing to complain about. She tells me that she's reading, and I'm starting to get emotional because I'm such a fetch. So she tells me that she is reading a book that was written by someone who was in the Twin Towers when the planes hit. And the author dictates and speaks beautifully but terrorizingly about how he was in the building and he really felt his lungs filling with smoke. He thought it was going to be his last breath and he was gasping and gasping for air and he thought that was it. Obviously he survived to write the story. But he said that when he was able to walk again and to live again, he said he was grateful for every breath he took, that his lungs could work, that he could function and live a normal life. Grateful for every breath. He said as he breathed in and he breathed out, he'd never once thought about his breathing before, ever. Sometimes we have to lose something in order to appreciate it. But you know what she said to me? She said, Sharon, I breathe every day. I am so grateful for my lungs. And when I read this story about him, I was able to focus so much more on it. It made me so much more grateful. I called my husband on the way home and I said, honey, I need you to make me a cup of tea. We have to sit on the couch because I need to tell you about my experience tonight. And I went home and emotionally vomited all my inspiration out to him. Just amazing. I was blown away. So we've done this. Every single morning we wake up in the morning and we say, thank you, Hashem, one of the morning blessings. Thank you, Hashem, for providing me with all of my needs. But I don't know about you. I don't have my needs. I want to go to a holiday in Hawaii or Barbados. I want to buy a new minivan and I need this. I can list all of my needs. I need a personal trainer. But I know that Hashem provides all of my needs. So what I have is what I need. And we get to say that like a mantra every single day as a reminder. Thank you, Hashem, for providing me for all of my needs. And I'm so happy and I'm so wealthy. So who is rich? One is content with his lot. So now we've done who is wise? One who learns from others. Who is rich? One who's content with what he has. Now let's do who is honored. Who's honored? one who honors others. So what does someone who is honored mean? Because all the other traits are really positive, who's wise, who's healthy, who's happy. But honor, you know, the sages say we're meant to run from honor. Now it's who's honored, we're defining that, because here the context is really self-respect, self-esteem. Self-esteem is an understanding. Every single morning we say one of the prayers, it's this: Hashem, the soul that you've instilled within me is pure. Because in a Torah perspective, what makes us special? The fact that we have a soul. It's not my beautiful eyes or my great hair or my shining teeth or my figure or my salary. What makes me special is that I have a soul. And we don't need others to see us as worthy, because I'm worthy just because I have a soul. So a person with self-respect is one that's able to respect others. They're not trampling on other people in order to feel good. They're not being overly assertive in order to feel good and to get their way. They have to be right often. So I want you to ask yourself, when you interact with people, what's your focus as you're greeting people, as you're meeting them? Do I walk around wanting them to know how great I am, you know, as I walk around? Or do I walk around wanting them to know how great they are? To focus on their greatness. Because if it's my greatness, it's really taking. But if my focus in wanting them to know that they're great, then the focus is on giving. And the ideal of respecting other people is what gives me self-respect. I should have no problem complimenting other people, no problem celebrating with other people. So, and lastly, let's do strength. Who is strong? So again, it's not someone that can bench press lots of weights, and it's not the superhero. It's not the muscle-bound superhero that's going to do the mission impossible and save the day because it's an impossible mission. That's what makes him a hero. So for us, just living life in a way, so who is strong? Someone who is in control of it's called a yetzer. So that's our self-destructive tendencies, our desires. One who shows self-control or self-restraint. So that's who's strong, says Judaism, says Ben Zoma. So the Talmud teaches us that every single one of us has an internal battle, an internal struggle that is raging every minute of the day, every minute of every day. And it's a battle between the body and the soul. What the body desires and what the soul desires. The body wants to sleep, wants pizza, alcohol, to surf on the web, to waste time, drugs. It just wants to go to sleep. The body is very lazy and it doesn't want to fight. So our body wants to escape. So to live for what our soul wants takes a tremendous amount of effort. That's the self-control. So real strength means standing up and fighting against what's holding us back in life, what's preventing us from realizing our potential. Because the soul wants meaning, the soul wants purpose, the soul wants connection to God. The soul wants to be the best possible us. But to recognize my weakness is just like originally, you have to know what your lack is in order to fulfill it with wisdom. So here I have to know what my lack is in order to be strong. So recognize my weakness, where I lack control. Recognize what my bad character traits are in order to fight them. You know, the text doesn't say who is strong, one who's already controlled his Yetzer Hara, his inclination. It says one who is doing it every day. It's in the present tense, minute to minute, day to day. So I have to constantly know that I'm choosing between comfort or to be constantly fighting. It's so much easier to just give up and escape. I don't want to put the effort in. It's painful to put the effort in. I'd rather just sit on the couch and become one with my couch. So we have to constantly know that we're making that choice and fight the bad character traits. Find the common root. What was the programming that happened in my childhood that I have to reprogram? The goal of life is to fight those battles, not necessarily to win. We're told that the reward is connected to the effort, not the results. My job is just to put the effort in. It's not about the outcome. So if this is my job, here's an exercise. I want you to really look at your interactions with others. Would you cringe or be embarrassed if someone else that was important to you was looking at how you treated people? Would you want to be friendlier or warmer or try and understand people? Do you want to be perhaps more concerned if you were to watch a scene that happened in your house half an hour ago? If you're more aware of your lackings, then you choose comfort. You don't choose comfort over battle. So who Gibor? Who's the strong person? The Gibor is a hero. So every morning Jews say a blessing. It says, thank you Hashem for girding Israel with strength. You're someone in the Jewish people. Israel is the Jewish people. So when we say this, we're actually getting dressed. It's a time in the morning where I'm putting on my belts. A belt's like a boundary. It makes a distinction between my intellect and my desires, because boundaries are really important when it comes to strength, when it comes to knowing that I'm making choices every minute of the day. And those choices shape the direction of my life, whether I'm going to move closer to Hashem or further away from Hashem, closer to meaning or further away from meaning, closer to my purpose, further away from it, closer to my potential or further away from it. We're always making choices. So ask yourself, am I a pleasure to live with? Am I a pleasure to live with? Because conquering that desire to just sink into the couch and escape, putting in the effort to work towards greatness and to conquer your desires, is really conquering the enemy within, and that's the measure of strength. So the verse has no interest in how many pounds you can bench press. The measure of human strength is self-discipline, which is the power of the intellect to direct your physical faculties according to what's right and wrong. So an idea is you could practice searching for news stories where you see someone found a wallet, or they bought a house and in the bottom of a drawer there was an empty lot, and they looked in it and there was thousands and thousands of dollars, and they searched for the owner rather than keep the money. Or another article where it could be someone in business was having a Ponzi scheme, and rather than joining the Ponzi scheme, you reported them. So they were reported. So each one of these, you have to notice for the boundaries, notice for the limits, because usually when we read the newspaper, it's about sexual immorality, cheating, or stealing, or speaking badly about other people. That's usually the boundaries where the lines are crossed in order to be able to, have a really good, juicy news story. So someone who is strong has self-control, has self-restraint. Being slow to anger. It takes far more strength to keep your cool when the kids are driving you crazy, or to hold your tongue when you've been insulted, or resist temptation, or slamming the door, or screaming. These are all forms of losing control, a sign of weakness. And it's also interesting to note that the 7 Noahide laws, which we got the 10 Commandments and the 613 mitzvahs, and the rest of society got the 7 Noahide laws to keep. And if you take a look at them, they're don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery. But the last one, it says you're not allowed to tear a limb from a living animal to eat it. I thought it was completely bizarre. So I saw a commentary to explain, because when you're setting up a society, for a society to exist, to flourish, it has to have self-restraint. So the theme of that commandment to don't tear the limb off the living animal is self-restraint. You can't just take whatever you want whenever you want it. So this commandment is needed for a society, a regular society, to function. So imagine this scenario to really push this point home. Stacey's waiting for her husband and she's got all excited. She's cleaned the house from top to bottom. She's cleaned the house from top to bottom and she's waiting for her husband to come home. And she's made a beautiful romantic dinner. He comes home and he doesn't notice. And he goes off to his bedroom and he surfs the web for the rest of the night, completely uncommunicative. He says he's not hungry. She's about to blow up. And just before she does, she gets all angry and all upset and she wants to do self-pity and be the victim. And just before she does, she holds herself and realizes this wasn't about me. This isn't about her. It's about him. He wasn't being malicious. Something was wrong with him. So something maybe happened at the office or he wasn't feeling great. Instead of reacting and letting him have it, she let her husband have a safe and trusting environment. And she went in, she said, I'm just here for you with compassion if there's anything. And with that safe environment, he was able to talk about his day. Otherwise, there would have been tremendous disconnection. We have lines at the checkout, in-laws testing the limits, traffic all the time when we're late, spouses and children that push the limits. The greatest pride and sense of achievement is being in control of your behavior, making the right choices. So, who is wise? One who learns from everyone. Who is strong? One who's in control of his desires. Who is rich? One who's happy and content with his lot.